All right, from business to mind your language. All right, so let's now start minding our language as we bring in Willis, the word master, joining us from Kisumu County live. Willis, it's great to see you this evening. How are you?
Betty, I'm fine, but there is a small problem with my microphone. Let me put it on so that we can get talking. Mburu, get the microphone on, your microphone.
All right, so we can hear you clearly.
Betty, can you get me now?
Yes, 100%.
You can hear me very clearly now?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, thank you so much, Betty. I'm fine, and how about you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for asking, Willis. So I want us to get straight to word on the street, and then we can get this going.
Echelons, 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 echelons,
Enkelons, enkelons, enkelons.
Echelons, echelons, echelons.
Hecalons. Hecalons. Echelons.
Echelon, 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 echelon.
Hey, Willis, so there you go. Very many pronunciations. You know, last week there's something that Kenyan said and, it was too funny. So this one I've really tried to hold myself, Willis. So talk to us about this word, echelons, echerons. How do we go about it?
But in the first place, this word, we've really focused on it, and Kenyans really love this word because it's very confusing.
Very.
But what we should understand is that C and H takes the sound sh. It's a digraph which takes the sound sh. So you say echelon, 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 and all that. We should avoid, saying, those versions. What we should say is echelon, echelon.
Echelon.
And it reminds me about the word chevron. We should not say chevron, we say chevron, chevron. And we also say echelon.
Echelon, echelon. Willis, so, and then, there's this car. So is it Chevrolet or Chevrolet? How do we go about that one?
Chevrolet.
Chevrolet.
Chevrolet, Betty.
Right.
You say Chevrolet.
Okay,
yes.
Willis. All right, got it. Let's move on to the other word. Obvious, obvious. Is that be, is it announced or pronounced? Do we say obvious or obvious? Is it obvious that it's obvious?
Betty, the pronunciation of that word is obvious. Ob. You pronounce that B. Ob. Obvious.
Oh.
Obviate. Obvious. Not obvious. But obvious, you may also use it for what we call ease or easy articulation. You'll find it easier when you say obvious, but the standard or acceptable pronunciation of that word, Betty, is obvious. Just like you may hear of background, background. But we have to pronounce, we have that sound k, background, obvious, obviate, not obviate, not obvious, obvious, background. Betty, some of these words are tricky.
Hey, Willis. Okay, so that's a surprise for me. I was actually just saying obvious, knowing that it's obvious. So I was wrong, evidently. So we actually say obvious, like obvious. So it's not
it's obvious.
Obvious.
Obvious. And obviously. Obvious.
Obviously.
Obviously.
Wow. Okay, Willis.
Yes.
Like I said another time, you make English sound scientific, but, we are here to learn. So it's obvious. I'm sure my Twitter is going crazy right now with everybody,
obvious.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's now take a look at another word after
What happens, Betty, there is something that I want to also clarify.
Yeah.
In most cases, I don't know whether you remember the time maybe you joined, primary school or pre-primary. There are certain things that maybe your teacher could talk about and you're like, what? When you don't know something, sometimes it may even sound, in fact, scientific in a way. But languages, when we study them, deeply, in fact, there is that aspect or that element in them. So we have just to get it right. And we are also a bit unfortunate that our system or our education system, has grammar and vocabulary. A lot of emphasis is laid on grammar and vocabulary. But when it comes to pronunciation, it's a problem because you may even be told, take it the way it is. Then when you become a broadcaster, a lawyer, a marketer, or any other person who is in the careers of serious communication, you may end up guessing so many pronunciations without knowing, my dear sister.
Well, I believe that. I believe that, Willis. Let's now.
It happens.
It happens.
It happens.
Yes. So obvious is the correct pronunciation. Let's move on to this other word. Let me spell it out. Cogitate. How do we go about that word?
That is cogitate.
Cogitate.
Cogitate,
All
not
right.
cogi. That G
Yeah.
takes the sound J to cogitate.
Cogitate. All right, Willis.
Yes.
Let's move on to this other word. And do we say depravity, depravity? How do we say this word? The correct pronunciation, Willis.
Letter A takes the short, low front vowel sound. I'm speaking, slowly so that we can get it right. The low front vowel sound Depravity, depravity, not depravity.
Okay.
We deprave, but this word which refers to wickedness, we say depravity.
Okay, Willis. So as you were explaining that, Willis, I noticed you
Yes.
said front. So it's not front like in front of her. It's in front.
Betty,
I have to be so
sometimes
keen,
I
Willis.
say let English be English and let Kiswahili be Kiswahili and mother tongue be mother tongue. You see, we have what we call the English phonology. There are certain words in which letter O takes what we call the mid-central sound just like my son.
My son.
My son, S-O-N. It's
Son.
O, but it takes the sound So when we talk of front, it's also that sound But we are used to what we see. We end up saying front.
Yeah.
We even say front line. But here, locally, we'll say front line and all that. In front. We'll say in front because of what we see.
Okay.
And we were never told which way is which.
Okay.
So it happens, as I always say.
In front, Willis. In front. Okay, so
Yes.
it's very important for us to know the correct pronunciations, Willis. Let's move on to the next word.
Yes, but you
And-
can also say important.
Yeah, I like saying important because, you feel a bit important. So it's okay, Willis. Let's move on to the next word. And I'll also, I'll spell this one out. Abstemious, abstemious. Abstemious? How do we go about
you
that
say
one?
abstemious, abstemious. Abstemious. That is, like when somebody normally, denies himself or herself, that chance to have fun or to have enough food
Yeah.
or alcohol, you say abstemious, not abstemious.
Okay, abstemious.
Yes, that way.
Okay, let's move on to the
Yes,
next
Betty.
word. Conceit. Conceit. Is that the correct pronunciation? I would pronounce it that way.
You say conceit, just like deceit.
Deceit.
What we should avoid is saying conceit or deceit.
Okay.
We say seat, conceit and deceit.
Okay. Willis, there's one viewer who's just asked me, do you say papacy, when you're referring to a period that the Pope is the leader, a certain Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church? Papacy, his papacy, papacy. How do we go about that one?
You say papacy.
Okay.
The first A, that is the first letter A, takes
Right.
the sound A. Papacy. And we also say papal, not papal or papal.
Papal.
Papal is papal. Papacy is papacy, not
Okay.
papacy.
All right, Willis. Before we get to another
Yes.
feedback question, Kevin Ogola, you're asking the pronunciation of the word P-U-N-D-I-T. Pandit. How do we go about that one?
You say pandit.
Pandit.
P-U-N-D-I-T,
Yes.
pandit, a political pandit.
Okay.
But remember, when we're talking about, that place, the holy place in a church or, in a religious kind of, center,
Yeah.
you don't talk about pulpit. Now you say the pulpit. Pull. You use that letter U, takes the short sound U.
Okay.
Pulpit. But
Pulpit.
don't say pundit. We say pandit.
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 Pandit and pulpit.
Yes.
All right, Willis, got it. Let's now move on quickly
Yes,
to
Betty.
our surprise word, Willis. So obvious was a surprise because it's not obvious that it's obvious. Talk
You've
to us about
forgotten
your
something,
surprise word.
Betty. We are going to feedback questions, and I'll be very fast on that.
Okay.
Festus Mabanga of Kampala, we say loquacious. Loquacious.
Loquacious.
Festus Mabanga of Kampala, Uganda, thank you also for loving Friday Briefing and Mind Your Language. George Aria, we say participate.
Participate.
Don't say
Participate.
participate.
Okay.
Participate.
Participate.
That is George Aria. Joyce Kilonzo, gesture. You say a kind gesture. Nyerere Moses, vis-a-vis, not vis-a-vis. Vis-a-vis. Avoid vis-a-vis. Stanley Njoroge, you say colonel. Colonel, not colonel. Don't say colonel, you say colonel.
Okay.
Evans Opio, you say subpoena. Subpoena, that's a very tricky word in terms of, when you are being called to, go and give evidence
Yeah.
or to be a witness in court. Don't say subpoena, you say subpoena. That B is silent. And then O and E form what we call a vowel digraph, taking the sound E. P, pina,
Pina.
subpoena.
All right.
Then Triza Wekesa, you say though and although. Don't say though. You say though with the voiced sound the. Though. And then although.
Although.
Then Were Sam Ochieng, Sing Oanda and Marwa Mwita, I also say thank you. And we appreciate the way you love the program.
All right.
Now, the surprise word, Betty.
Yes, Willis, very quickly.
When we come to the surprise
Yeah.
word, many people would say eschew, which is not accurate. You say eschew. And you can also say eschew. What you avoid is chew. You say chew. Just like to chew sugar cane.
Okay.
One lady called Karen
All right.
really wondered one time, she was asking me, is it which way is which? But we say is chew or eschew.
Eschew.
Then finally, Betty, is the confusing, yes, we say S or is chew.
Okay.
Chew. Don't say chew. Then when we come to the confusing words, Betty, we have F-A-L-L. That is fall, to fall down with the long vowel sound O. Fall, to fall down. But when we have F-O-W-L, we don't say fall. Don't say guinea fowl. You say guinea fowl.
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 Okay.
F-O-W-L is fowl,
Okay.
just like F-O-U-L, a foul when we have a match. Otherwise, they nowadays tell me it is at Willis Ochieng 1.
At
on
Willis
Twitter.
Ochieng 1.
Betty, remind us about that.
Thanks so much, Willis, for that. Well, some of these pronunciations are not obvious, so you have to tune in or watch Friday
Yes.
Briefing every Friday to know the correct pronunciations because they're not
Yes.
obvious. I'm going to really use that this
Yes.
weekend, Willis. Obvious, obviously. Okay, Willis, let me stop there. I could go on and on and on. All right, so Willis, the word master, of course, joining us from Kisumu County with those difficult and tricky pronunciations. So we take a break here on Friday Briefing.